What's good, everybody? It's your boy Sunny, and I'm back again with another episode of Sunny Toast. And on today's episode, I'm here with a very special guest. I'm here with Julio Rivera. How's it going, Julio?
It's going amazing. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm excited.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate you stopping by, man. Not so often we get martial artists on the show. Well, actually, that's not true. We've had a couple, but not to your level. So can you? So Julio, on this show, we like to start from the beginning of the youth, or just like your earliest memories, and then like work our way up to present day. But before we get
Yeah.
into all of that, can you let the people know who you are and where they can find you?
My name is Julio Rivera. I'm a Puerto Rican New Yorker. I was born here. My parents were born in Puerto Rico. I grew up in East Flatbush, New York.
Okay,
And
nice.
I'm a mental health advocate. That's really what I mainly see myself as. But, my regular job is a self-defense instructor that I've been doing for 24 years. So I have black belts in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, and Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, which is a rarity.
Mhm.
Um, but I also have trained in every other martial art. I've taught Krav Maga and owned an MMA school and had MMA fighters on my team and a Jiu-Jitsu team. And I won a World Masters Championship in Jiu-Jitsu. And as a teenager, I was a national bodybuilding champion. So I was involved in fitness from the time I was 13, all the way through my martial arts days and today. And now my number one passion, even more than martial arts, is mental health and mental health advocacy.
Nice, that's good. That's good. All right. So where can the people find you?
My website is Internal Jiu-Jitsu.
Hmm.
My book, Broke Down Sensei, is on Amazon now. And my new essays on mental health are on medium.com at my webpage on Medium. So just search under my name. And all my updated, I usually post something every day. So my
I saw
essays
that.
have to deal with the human experience and mental health and recovery and overall wellness.
I saw that you. I was looking. I'm like, okay, let me scroll through. I'm trying to see like, you wrote all these essays. Let me. I was trying to look like at the beginning. I'm trying to go all the way back, and I just kept
Yeah.
scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. I'm like, wait, hold on. He's on this every day. Mhm.
Yeah, I've been doing it every day. It's funny. I was at it for years, man, and nobody was reading my stuff, and I was still plugging away, and I got to the point where I'm like, man, nobody's reading, but you know what? I'm gonna do this forever, so it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
And then the next day, people started reading, and then all of a sudden, I had a couple of stories take off, and I realized the more I wrote, the better I got. So that was the reason I wanted to keep plugging away at it, to get better at my craft instead of chasing like people reading my stuff just to get better, knowing that if I kept putting quality stuff out there, the eyes would come if it was meant to be for me.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. And as far as like your progression, do you feel like you were diving into the same topics, but as time went on, like you got newer ideas, or like you found more of yourself? Is that safe
Man,
to
my
say?
this route was always laid out for me. I
Mm.
just couldn't see the pieces. Just like anything else, when we're too close, we can't see the full picture. So as a child, I grew up in a really rough environment, East Flatbush during the crack epidemic, in the heart of it. And there was a lot of violence, every day. I was scared all the time, man. I was scared for my life. I was mugged at gunpoint and I saw murders and it was a lot of stuff that traumatized me as a kid. And that's something called CPTSD. So unlike PTSD, CPTSD is when you're continuously going through the traumatic
Mm.
events every day. I had a tumultuous upbringing in the household as well. So outside I felt unsafe, inside I felt unsafe. So to make up for that, I started lifting weights. I was a nerdy kid and I knew I was going to get bullied if I didn't start lifting weights and get stronger. So I got as big as I could, as scary looking as I could, and I became a champion. But I still felt that internal fear.
Mm.
So then I started training fighting and obsessed with fighting and learning how to defeat somebody else. But in my heart, I didn't have that in my heart. I wasn't a violent person. So there was this contradiction between like wanting to learn how to choke people out in different ways, but at the same time wanting to like hug my fellow neighbor and be at peace all the time. But for me, it was all about like getting tough on the outside so that I could feel safe on the inside. And the
Mm,
more I trained, the more proficient I got, the more I realized I wasn't feeling any safer on the inside. You know, as much as I knew I could kick somebody's ass, I still felt that tension. I still felt anxiety. I still felt like the littlest thing could make me feel like I was getting chased by a tiger, you know, and I knew there had to be
mhm.
something deeper. So that's when I started to look beyond the physical stuff and really look inside, look deep.
No, yeah, that's so it sounds like a long journey. And I mean, you have said this is like something you've been dealing with your whole life.
Yeah.
Um, but to go back a little bit, and I don't wanna unravel any like deep traumas or anything, but can you like bring me back to like growing up in it was it the 80s you said it during the crack epidemic. So
Yeah.
take me back to that era. Like this is something like we all like it's something that's kind of been and I saw
Romanticized.
this, it has been romanticized. And recently I saw someone point out like, oh, they was romanticizing the drug dealer, but they never they never shed a spotlight on the people suffering, those so-called like crack babies or children that are being born to these parents or just people that have to live in these environments. So can you take me back to this time and like give
Yeah.
me this era through your eyes?
Yeah. I remember clearly the drug dealers with their nicer cars, and it was
Mm.
more about the rims than the cars, you know? The
Mm,
cars would be like a Toyota Camry, but the rims were like macked out all the time. And that was impressive to us. You know, we came from nothing. And
mhm,
if you stepped on somebody's sneakers, you were ready to fight. Forget it. You better not step on somebody's sneakers. In our building, my dad was a superintendent. So we got to sweep and mop the buildings. And it was just crack vials that we would sweep up, you know, from the vestibule, from the hallway. People would shoot up downstairs. It was scary, but the building next door was way scarier because there were murders there happening all the time because that's where the Mexicans were moving in. And that's when Mexicans first started moving into Brooklyn. And
mm,
they were the victims, man. They were the ones everybody targeted because they weren't going to go to the police because they didn't want to get found out. They always had cash on them. They came at weird times when they came home. So they were getting murdered next door, like left and right, man.
wow.
And they kept coming. And out in the streets, like I saw my brother beat a guy with a baseball bat. I saw my brother throw a 40-ounce bottle at a guy's head. I saw my cousin beat a guy with a broomstick. I was robbed at gunpoint around the corner from my house when I was 13. I saw my best friend's dad murder somebody in front of my face when I was 8 years old, which
God damn it.
really fucked me up. And he was a martial arts master. And I think that's why maybe I became a martial artist, you know? Um,
Wow.
So, and I had friends get murdered who were like, you know, like the shining star of the community who made it to the Marine Corps. He got murdered defending somebody in the park. So
Mm.
he was the one person we had to look up to. And he was
And they
killed by
took him
one of
away.
our own, you know?
Yeah.
So it was just, there wasn't anybody to look up to in the environment, man. There really wasn't. And I wanted to try to separate myself as much as possible. I started listening to different kinds of music. I started dressing different. I didn't want to be like my brother. My brother's a retired cop now, but back then he was the worst. He was the worst of the worst, you know? So I didn't want to be like him. So I was just different to get out
Yeah.
of that, you know? And I fought against it that way. But eventually I became, you know, I became this tough guy on the outside, and but I was able to still express myself, and I was glad that I was able to do that because I was able to break through a lot of the boundaries that some guys just can't, you know, they're
Would
not
you say
allowed
that
to.
would you say that you choosing like different avenues? Because at that time hip hop and like R&B and all that type of stuff is very prevalent.
Mhm.
So you choosing to look for something else, did that ostracize you from groups or from your friends and stuff like that?
It did ostracize me, but I didn't care because I felt
You
so
didn't
out of
want to be
place,
part
man.
of it, yeah.
No, I felt so out of place that I think I purposely picked different stuff just so I could stay away from everybody,
So
just
what
so
you were
everyone could
into like
see.
rock and stuff? I mean,
I was into Guns N' Roses, and I was
mhm,
into, yeah, Nirvana, and you know, just nothing that my brother was into, and that was on purpose because I'd seen so much negative stuff happen through him that I just didn't want to be anything like him, you know.
mhm.
Now I admire him so much, but back then I wanted to be far away from that, and that really shaped my identity for me, it really did.
And okay, so can you shed some light on the, even though I know this is like a, if it's too traumatic, can you shed some light on the situation where you witnessed your friend's father commit a murder?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not shy about opening up about any of this stuff because I feel like it's important to be open in order to help people not feel alone because there's always
Mm-hmm.
somebody going through the same thing. So I was about 8 years old, 8 or 9, and my best friend lived upstairs, and his dad was a kung fu master who was always standing outside in front of the building.
Yeah.
He was a 6'4", tough-looking guy in a black beret, dressed in all black, who was intimidating and would kind of keep the drug dealers a little bit at bay in the front of the building. They at
And
least, yeah.
sorry, I don't know if I caught it. What was his occupation, or you didn't know at the
Oh,
time?
there was no occupation.
Okay,
His,
so he
his
was just a regular
occupation,
guy from the hood.
he just stood outside all day long. He was he was the unofficial security guard, but he was definitely on SSI because of Vietnam. I think that was the rumor
Mm,
that he was in Vietnam and he was on SSI. So he was just outside all the time. So as kids, we admired this guy so much because, the 80s were all about kung fu movies and fake masters and, all this bullshit you see in Crouching Tiger. So we thought he was a badass, like he was a genuine martial arts master. So one day I heard commotion and our we were on the first floor and our window was right next to the front door of the building. And I ran over to the window and I see him arguing with a guy. He's standing up on the vestibule step. The guy's shorter and he's down below. And the guy shoves the martial arts master. And before his back hits the gate, he's already reaching behind his back. As
mm,
soon as he springs off the gate, he takes out a weapon, he takes out a blade and shoves it in the guy. There's no talking, there's no martial arts stance, there's no bullshit. There's pulling out a knife and murdering him, and that's it.
mm.
So I watched the guy fall, and I couldn't take my eyes off his eyes. And I felt like I was that guy in that moment. I felt like I was losing my breath. I felt like I was about to die. I was
Mm.
freaking out. And I'm the one that called 911. I was 8 years old, but I was so terrified that this guy was gonna die. I'm screaming, please, he's gonna die, please, please, crying. And I can still, when I talk about it, I can still feel it.
Hmm.
Like I can't remember it as clearly as I can feel it. Like my body remembers it. You know what I mean? So um, I was just terrified. And he never did any time. He lived in the building the whole rest of my life. And when I moved out, his brother was connected with the police department, so that might have had something to do with it. So I
Wow.
would see him every day. I would see this guy that I saw commit murder every single fucking day.
And was he not like, did you see a change in him after this or no?
I saw a change in the way he looked at me
Oh,
because
because
he
he saw
knew,
that you saw.
because he knew I was the one that called. He
Mm.
knew I was the one that called. It didn't matter that I mean, I got away with it because I was 8 years old. If I were older, I think he would have killed me or he would have done something to me, you
And
know?
the dad, he was Puerto Rican also, or
Yeah, he was mixed. He was mixed white and Puerto Rican. He was like one of the only white looking people in the neighborhood.
okay, okay.
But he was like one of these white looking Puerto Ricans who was more Puerto Rican than anybody could be Puerto Rican just because they want
Yeah,
you to think they're white.
un
So,
nacho nene type of guy.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, so but he was a character, man, and I never, I lived in that fear of him the whole rest of the time until I moved out, 8 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's, I want to go back a little bit. So you said something that really stood out to me, and it was like what see looking into his eyes as he was dying, like you saw that, you can't, you like that picture still with you, and you mentioned a feeling, and it's something I've heard of, like a lot of times, like when you see someone dying, it's kind of like a feeling in the air, like you feel like their spirit leaving their body. Would you say
Mhm.
that's accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. I felt a connection to his spirit and I could feel the fear in him that he was afraid of the moment
Mm.
temporarily. I feel that there's a point where you're not afraid anymore, but I could feel the moment when he was still afraid, and kind of that alleviation of that. But as a child, I was so afraid of death at the time. If that
Mm-hmm.
happened to me today, my reaction would be completely different. But back then, the thought of my parents dying to me was just I couldn't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
So to witness it firsthand, that made it real for me, way too real, and I was ready for it to be.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah,
Imagine like that's tough, bro. Like seeing a murder like at that age. Like I think the first time I saw a dead body was like I had to be like 11 years old, so like 11, 12. But weird stuff. It was I got off the train and it was like around Polo Grounds, Polo Grounds. You
yeah,
know how
yeah.
when you get out the D train, is the project is right there. As soon as I come out, there's like this guy. It was a heavier set guy, and I just remember his shoes were off. And then like later, I found out like that's because they took the drugs out or the money out of his shoes. But like that part always still with me. Like I saw the guy, and then like I'm like, why is his shoes off?
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I know how like that could like, and I imagine like even at 8, like that would be like way, and you actually witnessed the murder. Like I just saw the body and it stood out to me. Like
Yeah.
witnessing the murder is like wow, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
and I already wanted out of the neighborhood. I was
Mm,
already terrified of the fucking neighborhood. So seeing that, I was just like, I was after my father's to move us out of there, but he was saving so much money being superintendent, you know what I mean,
yeah.
that he wanted to stick it out. And I think I resented him for a long time for that.
So what changed in you? Like, did you still hang out with that guy's kids? Like, what happened after this?
Mm-mm. No, we stopped hanging out as much. He kind of went the bad route, so did his sister. Family kind of fell apart a bit. Um, but yeah, we
Subsequently after
stopped
the
hanging out.
murder or just in general?
After the murder, it seemed like things started to go bad, and I stopped hanging out with them after that for sure because I used to spend a lot of time at their apartment, and
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that anymore. It was too fucking scary, man.
Do
So
you do you have any like did the guy ever like say anything? Like did you have any conversation with the kid like, yo, I saw your dad kill somebody or like something like
no,
that or no?
no, I never talked to the son about it. I never. I
Nah.
mean, you mentioned that to your, you know what I mean? I didn't know how to say anything, but the actual guy said something to my brother years later. He said to my brother, I know it was your brother that called the cops that day. He goes, he's lucky that he was your brother or something like that. Something ominous. It was fucked up. And he was crazy enough to do something insane. But I didn't know any, but I didn't know like any rules of the streets back then. I
Yeah.
didn't know, you know what I mean? I just saw somebody dying and I wanted to help that guy more than anything.
Wow, so
And
that's crazy. So the dad so he didn't go to jail. He didn't get locked up for it, but they came and grabbed him because of that
he
situation.
barricaded himself in his apartment. It took like all night to get him out.
Hmm.
And I think he was locked up like overnight or something.
Wow. Well, from your recollection, you were 8 years old. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
I
you
was
don't
8 years old.
remember.
I know
Yeah.
he didn't do any time. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
he might have spent a couple of days in lockup,
So
but
you don't
yeah,
think like he went through a full trial or anything?
I don't think so. I don't think so. If he did, he got off without
Hmm.
doing anything,
Yeah,
and he
yeah.
was out on bail, which is fucking insane. But
Did the dad ever? So you said that he always looked at you a certain way. Did he ever mention anything to you?
no, he didn't.
No.
But he didn't need to. His eyes kind of said everything to me. You know what I mean? Like it seemed like he wanted me to be afraid every time I saw him. You know. So
Got like a real life Bronx tale going on, but the guy didn't fucking come in. He didn't become your mentor.
yeah, right. If he would have got me a little earlier before the murder, he might have been. If I would have started training with him.
Okay, so you mentioned that he was a martial arts guy. Did what type of martial arts was he into?
He was a kung fu guy. you
Okay,
know.
pardon me.
And back then, kung fu was supposed to be hot shit.
Hmm.
So so everybody believed that it was truth, that it worked.
Not so much nowadays, right?
No, not so much nowadays. Although, there's value in everything, and there's some techniques, like especially the old school guys, when they don't realize that kung fu, 80% of the techniques are grappling techniques, but in the
Mhm.
movies they make them look like they're striking techniques. So there's some stuff that's very effective, but you got to find the right people. You know what I mean? Just like everything else, it gets watered down when it comes here.
Okay, all right. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna jump a little bit ahead, but we'll get back to
yeah.
so you mentioned kung fu is kind of that was the end all be all back then, but nowadays I kind of see like the trifecta is boxing, wrestling, and jujitsu.
Hmm.
Like those are the
Yeah,
most like if you're a martial art, a mixed martial artist, and you study those three, I'm pretty sure like you're gonna be well off. You're gonna be good,
very
right?
much. Yeah, yeah. Boxing or Muay Thai as well, because
Mm,
Muay Thai has the benefit of knees and elbows and clinch work as well. Um, so yeah, you have to be well rounded. It's not enough to just be good at jujitsu anymore, like it was 20 years ago.
yeah.
Or any singular thing. It used to be a time kickboxers could come in and wipe everybody out, or jujitsu guy could come in. No more. You gotta be balanced, and I love that. I've always been training in everything at the same. I started boxing and judo and jiu-jitsu all at the same time. So I believe you should be a martial artist. You shouldn't just know how to grapple and not know how to throw a punch, or not even know how to stand and hold your fists and hold your. And a lot of guys you'll see get black belts in arts that can't defend themselves. There's no way they're going to defend themselves in a
Mm.
real type of situation. And that's
It's more
like what's the
performative.
point? No, there's no pressure testing at all for a lot of
Mm,
them. So they never know what it's going to be like in a real type situation with their adrenaline up. A lot of them don't compete, so they don't come close to any kind of real situation. And a lot of them haven't had street fights. Lucky for them, but if you've had a street fight, then you feel the difference. There's a big
hmm
difference between competition and a street fight. The adrenaline level is fucking through the roof. And as close as competition is, it'll never be the same
mm,
because of the explosiveness and that initial charge that happens in a street fight. So I always ask my students first, or my private clients, have you had a street fight? Because I'm going to approach them differently depending on which side. If they haven't, then the first thing they need to know is that it's going to be chaotic when it happens, and they have to kind of let that set in. If they've been through it, they know what the chaos is going to be. You know.
yeah. Okay. Nah, yeah, definitely. I get it. It's definitely different. Well, I haven't done like mixed martial arts, but I know that the adrenaline you say that you feel like when you're in a street fight, because it's kind of like your life is on the line. Like, well, if you're cognizant of it, you're not just like,
Mhm.
oh shit, going into it, but like if you're thinking about it, like, oh shit, I could fucking die this morning, or I could kill that guy too. So it's like more pressure, added pressure into it.
Right, right, right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that should be the attitude all the time, because if you
Mm-hmm.
go at somebody, there's always the possibility you could die. You could be
Mm-hmm.
having a friendly little scrap and hit your head on the cement, and you're dead, or have some pre-existing condition that you don't know. So
Yeah.
anytime you get physical, I mean, even football, look at all the things they're finding out about football, the violence there. I mean, you're putting yourself at risk all the time. But when it comes to fighting, it creates that new element because it's out in the open. The fear and the element of possible death is out in the open. And that's what makes it so exciting, and what makes it the number one sport. Whenever a fight breaks out on the street, everybody stops. If you're
Mm-hmm.
in an arena, everybody stops if there's a fight in the stands, and they stop looking at the ring.
Yeah.
Rather watch a street fight.
That's an interesting point. I never noticed that. It's true though. It's something about, and it's kind of like it's funny you say that because I feel like nowadays people try to say like, oh, like people nowadays they pull their phones out and they just watch, but it's kind of like that's kind of like carnal instinct. Like two
Hmm.
guys start fighting, you're like, all right, hold on, I gotta see what's going on. Let's see what's going. Oh shit! Oh! Like
Yeah.
it's just natural to do that
Yeah,
in a way.
yeah. See, but I would watch the fight. I would never pull out my phone because I want to
Mm,
see the whole thing. You know what I
mm,
mean? I think other people are just thinking about posting it, but I want to see how this guy's moving, how he's reacting, how's he moving his foot, how's he adjusting his head. I don't want to be looking through this camera. So it's a different perspective. Like I'll watch street fights occasionally to technically break it down and see what people are doing and why they made mistakes and what they could have done better. I think every good self-defense instructor does that. You know what I mean? Other people, unfortunately watch it for other reasons. So
You should do reaction videos like that. Even though I know it's kind of like it's
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like
yeah.
shaky territory because people are actually fighting. You don't know what happened after.
Yeah. And there's a couple of guys that do such a good job with it that I don't think I could do a better job than them,
Okay, okay, okay. I
So
respect
yeah.
that. So it's been done. Okay, so all right, so damn, so you witnessed that murder. It added more fuel to your wanting to get out of the. I'm gonna just say the hood because it's kind of like it is what it is. Like you were in the
Yeah,
hood
yeah.
and this was the environment. So
Hmm.
so that put extra fuel on it to the fire. So you start you start separating yourself. You're not hanging out with the guys no more from the building. I'm
Yeah,
assuming.
I
Yeah.
was very into my academics at that time, you know.
Hmm.
I I went to school with a suit and a little briefcase
Oh shit.
because I was like I was what's his name was my hero from Family Ties, Michael J. Fox from Family Ties, and he always wore like a suit and tie and a briefcase. And I thought I was gonna be like Mr. Republican lawyer and like, get out of that whole thing. And
Hmm.
but that wasn't me either. You know what I mean? That wasn't me. I was a balance of the two things, and I had to find that balance first. But it took me to go all the way from one side to the other first before I could come back and find balance and know that I could be strong and be tough, but at the same time be sensitive and be aware of my feelings and be mindful.
Okay. So we talked a little. Well, we didn't really get into like school. So how's your process like during school? Like going like well, you saying like what do you like initially? Like when did that change start? Like you want to like get spiffy and like dress a certain way, think
Yeah.
business minded. Like when did that start?
Man, when I first went to Erasmus. I went to Erasmus Junior High for like one day, right? And I thought I was going to get killed. So I told my parents, I'm never going back to that school again. You need to get a fake address and change my school. And I refused to go back. But that school showed me that I needed to change my look and everything if I was
Mm,
going to make it in junior high. And it just so happened the school I went to was this really high level junior high school, Cunningham Junior High, that was like their work was 3 grades ahead of the school I was coming from. It was crazy.
mm.
So I became the tough kid at that school because I was the only one from the hood there.
Now you were the grunt.
Yeah, it was a total role reversal. It was very bizarre. And I was having a tough time with my grades because the work was so much more advanced. It was a very
Mm,
bizarre year. But but I got to feel what it was like on the other side. And I got to feel like some of the racism and some of the classism, because I wasn't exposed to as many things as those kids were.
hmm.
So like the life that I thought I wanted, I got to see a peek of, and I got to see that, maybe those people weren't all that I thought they were.
Hmm.
So that caused, I think, further conflict for me, trying to figure out where I fit in. And then eventually I started partying a lot to kind of just, I don't know, I don't know what. Just to
And this is
party.
that, and this was as the years went on. Like by that time
Yeah.
you were, so did you kind of stay in those preppy schools after middle school? Like you tried to stay in
No,
the
I
lane?
went to that school that one year
Hmm.
and I had to move. I don't remember why I switched schools, but I'm glad I did because the next school I went to, they had this special program where you could skip a grade if your grades were high enough, and they tried to put me in the class below that class
Hmm.
because of the year I had the year before. But my parents, that Latino parents, they can't really advocate, so I had to advocate for myself. So I had a meeting with the principal, and I was like, "Look, I had a bad year last year because I was at this new school. I guarantee you, if you put me in this class, I'm gonna do well and I'll skip the grade." So she did, and I did the thing and I skipped the grade. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't have that hard work from the year before. So I made it into that program. I skipped a grade. I got into high school early. I was able to graduate high school early. But during all of high school, I was competing for bodybuilding shows and winning bodybuilding shows. So that was my extracurricular activity in high school. So while kids were in class, I'd be eating in the back because my teachers would let me eat. So I'd eat eating steak and potatoes in the back of the room, and the room stunk, but everybody let me do it just because they knew that was my thing at the time, you know.
Okay, good that you brought it up. I was gonna ask, when did the bodybuilding start? Because nowadays you don't it's not you don't think of that as a typical like extracurricular activity, especially for a child. Even though
Mhm.
you were in high school, but you're
Yeah.
still a child at the end of the day. But you don't think of young bodybuilders. Like, so if
Hmm.
I ever think of it like of a young bodybuilder, I only think of that one kid that went viral. I think they used to call him the young Tarzan or something. The
Mini
little
Hercules, mini
mini
Hercules.
Hercules. Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
yes.
yeah.
But like that's the only if you say like you were a young bodybuilder, that's the first image that comes to my
Yeah,
mind. So
yeah,
how did what in the I'm guessing this was like late 80s. Was
yeah.
late so in the late 80s was this more of a normal thing, like
It was.
bodybuilding?
There were younger bodybuilders back then. Like the guys at the top, some of them were, the early 20s. Now they're in their 40s, but back then the guys were in their 20s. So my goal was to be the youngest. So I started when I was 12. I started competing when I was like 13. I started winning shows when I was 14 and beating 19-year-olds. So I was like super duper duper obsessed, you know. I started high school at 118 pounds and I graduated at 215 when I was 16. So
Damn.
I was taking it real serious, but I didn't want to do football. I didn't want to. Initially, I wanted to wrestle in high school, but my school didn't have a team. So that's why I pursued bodybuilding so heavily. Um, and I was into pro wrestling too, and that's what those guys looked like. I was impressed by that. So I wanted to look like that. Yeah.
And the bodybuilding, did it help you out with dating or anything when you when you're young?
Yeah, I definitely didn't have a problem. I mean, the problem with looking like that was I didn't have to develop any game.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So like I don't have game. I never I never needed it back then, you know? Uh so that was the only thing. Like I had so much confidence that I don't wish to look like that again. I just sometimes wish I had the confidence that I had some of
That
those
brought.
days, you know?
Hmm.
But but I don't know. But it's funny, even that confidence, I didn't really feel it maximally unless I was high in a club, like
Hmm.
with my shirt off, with like music blasting on like 10 pills of ecstasy. I still wasn't happy with myself, only when I went out of my mind and could step out of myself and see, really see what other people could see. Because I couldn't see it. When I wasn't high, I couldn't see what other people saw at all, you know.
So you were
Uh,
still battling with your demons, well, for lack of a
yeah,
better term.
you're still
Yeah.
that scared little kid. Just because you look different doesn't mean jack shit, you know. You're still that scared little kid. You're still insecure. And until you deal with your internal shit, you're still gonna be that same fucking child. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Mm.
You have to embrace that kid, That's what I've learned, you know. For a long time I was afraid and ashamed. Shame is a big thing, Shame is will prevent people from kind of accepting that that's part of who they are. That scared little child, We start
Mhm.
try to pretend that we don't have that fear in us at all, especially men. For men, we're just raised differently. And but I've never been able to help it. Like I can't help but cry sometimes. I can't help but show my emotion. I have bipolar too. So I have rapid cycling. So today was a fucking horrible day for me, bro. I had like 5 crying fits. But at the same time, I got all my shit done. But this is what happens with me during the day. I'm fluctuating like a mad person, And a lot of
Sorry,
that stuff is
so my
connected
bad.
to the
Sorry that I
trauma.
cut you off. My
Yeah.
bad. Sorry, but and these things, are they coming from the actual situations that you're dealing with, or is this just pure emotional? Uh,
Yeah,
hmm.
it's not as much situational as it is like just the emotion happens, and
Mm-hmm.
it'll happen out of nowhere. Like I was I was having a fine day and then I went to fold laundry and at the laundromat I fucking broke down out of nowhere. Like and I didn't really know what it was about. And then but the problem is the emotion makes your thoughts start going. So you start to look for something that's wrong. So then it's like, oh, my life isn't where it should be. I should have done this. I should have done that. Why am I here? Why am I? But that thought wasn't there before the emotion started, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
had to start to become familiar with the idea that I have these natural fluctuations that are waves in the ocean. When they go up, I have to go up with them. When they go down, I have to go down with them. And if I try to fight against them, I just start to drown. I can't do it, you know? So I got to let the wave pass. And the more I let it pass, the quicker it passes, the quicker it leaves me. You know what I mean? If I cling on to it, then that's it. I just become part of it. And then
Yeah,
it
because
takes me
you have
down.
to let it through. You have to let it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how were you dealing with these type of situations when you were young?
I started therapy when I was 11. 11. I started writing when I was 12. So writing would help me a lot. Writing, working out, and therapy all started at the same time, and the three worked in conjunction to help me kind of um, contain it, you know. But I would still have really bad anger outbursts. That was a problem into my 40s until I started to really figure out what that was about. Like I had to analyze anger in the brain for a year straight and try to figure out what the fuck was going on with me and write an extensive article on anger to try to figure it out. And once I did, I was able to control it, and it's never been the same. And that was like probably 4 or 5 years ago. You know,
Would you say that you exercising, writing, and talking to people helped you avoid having to, well, I don't know if you have, or what did it help you avoid having to take like medication and stuff like
no, I take medication.
that? Okay, okay, just okay.
Yeah, I don't have. I didn't start taking it until I was in my 40s,
Okay.
and I didn't know a lot of the things that I had. I couldn't name them. I just thought I was broken and fucked up. You know, and then when I got into my 40s, my ex-wife actually suggested I try some medication. She's a PhD and she's been around mental health for many years. So I did, and man, my life instantly changed. Like it
Hmm.
was like this fog fucking lifted, and I felt like this incredible rush of energy and like mission, and you know. But that meant, but like my clarity about my mission now, like I all of a sudden I saw martial arts as my vehicle to teach about mental health. That shit scared a lot of people. People don't want to hear that. Like, especially the people, like the members of my school that were like my family, like my
Hmm.
children to me, they wanted Super Sensei. They didn't want the guy who like,
Sensei.
yeah, they didn't want to admit that he was fragile. They needed somebody tougher than them. So when I kind of started to expose, you know, what was on the inside, it made them uncomfortable. It made my ex-wife uncomfortable, you know. Understandably, you know, I understood eventually, but at first I was hurt because I felt like I needed them and I had given them so much over the years. But later I understood that it's not easy for a lot of people to deal with those emotions, you know, because when they see it in you, that means they have to face it in themselves. And most people don't want to look deep, deep, deep into darkness because it gets ugly, man. It's not easy, you know, it's painful. And it takes a lot of work that I don't even recommend it to everybody. You know what I mean? Like if your life is just going along, you feel good and you're all right, don't search deeper. Just fucking live. If you have to and you have no other choice, then look deeper. Because once you start the journey to look deep and you fall down that rabbit hole, that's it. And you got to go through the torture until you make it back around to the good times. You got to make it through the torture. And it's not fun, man. It's not fucking fun, you know. Like
Hmm.
everybody talks about spiritual enlightenment, like the path is gonna be so that shit is like trying to be a human being that's happy and not fighting themselves all the time is so difficult. And I totally understand how people just shut themselves off and watch sitcoms and don't want to think. And you know, I have family members like that. They just want to live their lives, make their paycheck, and not think. And I fucking get it. And if I could do it, I would do it, but I can't.
Nah, yeah, I feel it, bro. Damn. You saying all that, it just made me think of like a lot. Cause it's just, it's true what you say. Cause like once you open that door and like you decide, like, all right, I have to battle these demons. It's like, all right, you fight one, and then it's like you want to take a break, but it's like now that you're cognizant of everything, everything is just on you, and you're like, wait, I can't. have to get back into these traumas and like get everything out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. So going back a little bit, I know kind of like jumping all over the place, but so your bodybuilding in high school and then like when did you get into martial arts? Or what was the first martial arts that you started doing?
I always wanted to do it, but I was too focused on training and I was too big at the time
Mm-hmm.
to really be flexible. So when I got done competing, I was 23, and that's when I started training martial arts. I'm 48 now. So I jumped in it like obsessively, and I started teaching fairly soon just because I gained the trust of my teacher, and I was lucky he took me in. And he happened to have a therapy office in the back of his dojo. He would do
Mm.
therapy back there. And he took me on as a patient and helped
Oh
me a
wow.
lot. Yeah. And that's where I really gained the connection of the physical and the mental working with him. He was a spiritual guy as well, but he had come from a partying background and he still loved to have fun. But he was really searching for himself spiritually, and he's an older guy, and I respected his martial arts. And he was still competing into his 80s. I mean, he
Oh
was just
wow.
a tough guy, yeah, ex-Marine in Holland. And so being able to connect the martial arts with the spiritual side, I think that helped my path a lot and accelerated whatever progress I made, accelerated, as slow as everything has come. I think that made it happen a little bit faster, or at least give me a vehicle to find some kind of peace. You know what I mean? Something that I could pursue, because without something to pursue, it's very hard to find that stillness. You got to have
Mm-hmm.
something that gives you that
It ties
that
you
flow
down.
state. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, okay. So damn, so everything I was just thinking when you said that, like your initial like master was also into like therapy and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a full circle moment when you
Hmm.
eventually started to pursue the same path also.
Yeah, very much, very much. I was supposed to take over his school. Actually, he approached me
Mm,
to take over his school, and then his son ended up coming back into the picture. So his son took the school instead. Um, but we were very, very, very close for a long time, and we had some separation, recently. I mean, when I after my divorce and I sold my school, I I found my life just in a big transition, and I knew that I had to pursue writing more, and I knew I had to speak more about mental health, and regardless of what people thought.
mm-hmm,
And I had some people in my life that kind of disagreed with what I was doing, or kind of had a different vibe from what I was trying to pursue, and I had to, like, some people temporarily and some people permanently, like, kind of move them out of my life for a little while. And that was difficult, but I found that the isolation was necessary for me. And I think once you, as I spoke about before, once you decide to go deep, you're going to have a period where you're isolated, where nobody's going to be able to relate to you. And that's a tough time too, because you feel lonely, but you got to go through the process to get to know yourself.
okay. So why did you end up closing your old shop? Was that Omni?
Yeah, that was Omni. I
Mm,
closed it because my ex-wife was with me at the beginning when I opened the place, and the memories, man, were so hard. Like, I couldn't even set foot back in the place without, like, reacting. Like, toward the end, I would just reach in. I would reach my hand in the front door, reach my hand in the register, grab the money without looking inside and leave, because I couldn't stand to be there. And that was my home. That was my home for 9 years. That was my family. We would party together. We were so close. So losing that feeling in that place, it just broke me. It wasn't the same. So I wasn't gonna be happy there anymore. So I quit. And when I quit, I walked in and I just told them, look, I'm leaving. I'm gonna go write a book, and this is what I need to do. And I love you guys, and that's it. And everybody was in shock. So I got a lot of hate because of it, because people were hurt. It was like a parent leaving a child, but I didn't
yeah.
realize that at the time. A lot of them were traumatized, which is why they came to me to begin with, because I was a therapist for a lot of them in a lot of ways. So they had already dealt with this stuff in the past, with rejection, with fear of being rejected. So here I was leaving them, this parental figure suddenly leaving, and a lot of them took it really hard, man. Really, really hard, you know. I wouldn't say that it's a regret that I have, but I would have liked to have realized sooner that that affected people like that, so that I just so that I could feel more at ease about it, you know.
And
'Cause, yeah.
so in the moment, was it that you just, it's gonna sound harsh when I ask, but was it just that you didn't care, or because you were already like in this, like you weren't fully on doing your whole therapy thing with them, but you were part of their lives in that format. Did you not, like, were you just not cognizant of that, or was the pain of your divorce just so much and you just like, I just need that, I need everything out.
Yeah, it was the pain of the divorce, but it was also the burden of having so many of their issues on me for so long,
Mm.
of hearing their problems day in and day out, of taking weekends away to go to tournaments to support them, being away from my family, and then that not being appreciated in the end. I wasn't doing it for appreciation, but when I saw that, like, now they're yelling because I'm not giving them what they need when I need a break myself,
Because when it was your time, when it
yeah,
turned to you, the love wasn't the same, or just the compassion wasn't the same.
it wasn't the same, and then I was standing there with my daughter, my 3-year-old daughter at the time, and I was like, I have her. I don't need a fake family, if I got
Mm.
if I got this. So this is what I'm going to focus on right now. So that took a year where I didn't work at all. I didn't do anything. All I did was spend time with my daughter, travel, spend time with my daughter, and kind of live it up. But
What did you guys do in that time period? Where did you go?
we we just played a lot. We played every day. We got to see each other, during the week all the time, as well as the weekends, because I had much more time. When I had the school, I would get out of work at 9. By the time I got home, maybe she'd be awake for 15 minutes, or she'd be asleep already. So in that year, I jammed in like a few years worth of activity with her. So it, in a weird way, it made us much closer than we would have been, because that was a very formative time. She was 3, 4 years old.
Yeah.
Um, so it was really important for me to not to traumatize her at that time. So my ex-wife and I would make sure we were very amicable, and we never fought, and we never said anything negative about each other around her. And we never made her think that either of us was bad or anything like that. Because we were both so aware of mental health, we knew that, we had to be careful not to cause her any issues.
Yeah. Okay. That's a lot, man. That's just like, I can understand your journey because it was like similar. I could relate to some of the things that you're saying, like with the being there for those pivotal moments in a child's life. Like you don't understand like like it may seem small, but like looking back at it now, like as well, just me being a father now, I see it like no, like yeah, it does matter.
How
Like
old is your
just what
kid?
he's about to turn 3 in next month.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yeah,
that's exciting. That's a great
yeah,
age.
yeah. Well,
Yeah, this is the time, man. 3 is when the programming starts, 3 to 7 is like, I always had those numbers in my head. Yeah, by the time she's 7, I need to have her programmed, like, right, where she's gonna know how to, how to be a good person, and how to, treat people the right way and everything. Because if you can do that by 7, supposedly it's locked in. So
mm,
so we'll
okay.
see. I was also afraid, honestly. I didn't know if I would end up taking my own life. So in my head, I was like, once she turns 7, if I gotta go, I gotta go. It was that kind of thing for me. It was that, because I reached those kind of lows when I hit like the bipolar depression. So I spent a lot of time being suicidal. So for me, I had to make sure that I got her straight first. But then I realized how fucked up she would turn out if I offed myself. So I had to scrap that idea. And I don't believe that life ends when you kill yourself either. So I don't believe that life. I think it just, we die and then we just wake up again, like we're ourselves, but a little bit different. I think that's all that happens. So
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a complex thought. Like to think of what comes after because I also I also believe there is something else because like even from like my earliest memories, I just remember like it kind of the way like everything is synchronized when they tell you like you choose your mother and stuff like that. Like I kind of feel like I remember that moment weirdly
Mm,
enough. Like the earliest memory I have is like my mom is like sitting down, like it looked like it was like a kitchen floor or something, and like it was like a reddish tint and everything. You know how like those old photos were like kind of orange, but like
mhm.
imagine that, but like
Yeah.
more reddish, like more orangey. And then like I don't know, it's just like that memory always stood out with me. And then like I kind of like that was like start in a weird way.
Mm.
But nah, yeah, so I definitely believe that too. Okay, so I want to get back into a little bit more into like the martial arts and everything. Did you ever have like anybody make it into like the UFC or like Bellator or any of those type of
I've
things?
had I've had guys make it like to the initial pro ranks like right before shows like Bellator. I had a coach that was in Bellator as
Nice,
well.
nice.
Um, I've had I've had a lot of amateur fighters and guys who just turned pro. When I sold my school, that's I was at my pinnacle, you know.
Mm,
I just promoted my first black belt. I had just had a world champion black belt start working for me. It was the first time I had like a full team that was winning like national titles and everything was clicking, you know, and
everything was
I
popping
had
off, yeah.
yeah, I had pro fighters coming to train with me, guys in the UFC coming to train at my school for fights.
Any
So
notable names?
uh yeah, I don't want to say his name because he trains somewhere else, but
Okay.
but yeah, he's in the UFC now. So he's from Astoria as well. That's a good hint. There's only
Okay.
one guy from Astoria. So so these guys were coming to train and it was the best atmosphere, man. And I remember the day that everything was at the pinnacle and the next day everything fell apart. So I was my buddy was training for a fight and we were wrapping our hands and I was telling her, man, my life is perfect, man. I'm in love. I got my daughter. School's doing great. I mean, I got all these pros here. This is fucking amazing. So the next day, man, something happened with my wife that blew our life apart, you know, and everything just collapsed from there. I went from the happiest moment of everything in perfection to falling apart. And it really taught me this important lesson, you know, that you're like you're pushing this rock up a hill, you're pushing this rock up a hill, and it gets up there, and then it comes down again. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And that's kind of the nature of life, and sometimes we have to be prepared for that. And that moment when you're like, oh, that's it, I've made it. That's a dangerous moment, you know. It's a dangerous moment. It's always just a step to another step to another step, and it's always the journey and not the destination. Because as soon as it becomes a destination, man, you start to think, well, I made it. And then life will tell you, well, then let me give you something else if you think you made it, you know? Yeah. So I've learned that through experience.
Yeah, I'm forgetting what it was, but I remember there was this a scripture like that. It was just a sermon somebody was saying, and it's kind of like those are the tests. Like those are kind of it's in a fucked up way because it's like I think we get away from the thought like, oh, life is supposed to be easy or stuff like, but it's not really supposed to be easy. It's full of tests and trials and tribulations, and that's what makes the joyous moments so wonderful that you have to hold on to them and hold
Mhm.
them near to you. You get it? But no, yeah, I definitely agree with it. Like that stuff like comes in and like it tests you and then it puts you and then like I don't know, would you say like you end up you right now because of these things that you went through, are you happier now that you are where you at because of these things happen and you got through them, you acknowledged them and whatnot?
I, you know, I don't see it as a matter of happy anymore. I see it
Mm,
as I'm closer to the person that I always knew that I could be, you
mm-hmm,
know, and that's my journey in my life,
mm,
becoming that person. And you know, that image of that person, I could see him 5 years ago, but there was all this work that needed to happen in between. And I've put in the work, but there's more work to be done, you know. And once I get to this certain level that I wrote out 5 years ago, there'll be another level to get to. Um, but I'm much, much happier that I went through what I went through, because the person that I am today is light years ahead of who I was 5 years ago in so many ways. I felt completely disconnected from the rest of the universe back then. You know what I mean? And there's not a lot you can accomplish when you feel that way. It's very difficult to go through this life alone completely, you know. And even if you're surrounded by people, you're going to feel alone if you feel disconnected from the rest of the universe. So for me, I had to sense complete isolation from actual people, and the love that I used to get. I used to get a lot of love every day from hundreds of students, you know. Once that went away, I lost my family, my students, my school, and my team that I used to train with also, because we had a big falling out all at the same time. So all my whole crew was gone. So it was just me and whatever else there is. I had to figure out where I stood with whatever else there was, you know.
Did you stop working out during this period also?
Did I stop?
Yeah,
No,
no.
no. I never stopped. I stopped training jujitsu as much.
Mhm.
Um, but I started lifting weights more for the privacy and doing some yoga and, you know,
Get an
kickboxing more.
introspective. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I needed a lot more isolation time, and I
Oh, so
needed,
you did kickboxes. So you just needed something different. You needed a little. Mm.
yeah, something different. And I started training clients that needed to focus on the striking more. So it was nice for me because I needed a break from jujitsu. It was partly the culture, because I had opened another school after the pandemic in a really bad location, but it was a really good deal. And it only lasted a couple of months. I knew there was a chance it wasn't going to work, but it was a beautiful place. So the experience was a rough one, because it was a gorgeous spot. You know, I thought at least my reputation would precede me and people would trek, but it was just so hard to get there. And then on the day of the grand opening, I promoted a friend to black belt, and he had to reject the black belt later because of he was training somewhere else, and there was a whole political thing. So I was turned off to jujitsu, is my point. So I was glad to put it aside a little bit and focus
Mhm.
on kickboxing and get better as a martial artist myself by training boxing more and studying boxing more and the technicalities of it more. Because I think there's so much we can always improve, you know, and that's what I love about martial arts. There's always so much to learn, you know. Like I do one of my privates at a kung fu place, and there's stuff I can learn. I learned from kung fu as well. You know, I trained with taekwondo guys for years, so I learned valuable things from taekwondo. So there's always great things to learn, and I'm all about learning, man, constantly. You know.
Okay, so you're constantly still like trying out new martial arts and stuff just to stay
Yeah, new martial
fresh.
arts and just anything, any kind of knowledge I can get my hands on. I like anything new I can learn. I feel like I'm doing my brain a benefit if I can learn something new every day. You know,
Mm.
um, a new word, a new phrase, a new quote, a new, it's just some new fact I didn't know before, because I feel like it lights up a certain part of my brain that wasn't there before, you know. And I really believe that's something that we have to work on our whole lives. You know, my mother's suffering from early Alzheimer's now, and I can tell it's from a lack of constant stimulation. You know, it's a huge
Hmm.
part of it. So um, I'm really big on that, and I couldn't. It's funny, when I was a kid, I didn't want to be a lawyer because I thought it'd be too much studying, but now I study all the time just on my own, just for myself or for articles that I'm writing, you know. And I love the research part of it, you know. I love it.
Yeah, I get it, bro. It was a lot. Yeah. So so I saw like so your school's like fairly popular because I saw all the CW11 like they interviewed you
Oh
because
yeah.
I think this is around the time like mixed martial arts was going viral. Well,
Hmm.
back in the day before those were viral. And
Yeah, yeah. Where people were still scared of it a little bit.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I saw that they had like a little article you were talking about like, oh yeah, I don't put kids in a cage or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah. That was a long time ago, man. It was over 15 years, probably 16, 17 years ago. Yeah. Yeah, it was a different, that place I was teaching was more of a, you know, I don't want to say watered down place, but It wasn't the kind of place I would have on my own. It was a place that I managed and I ran for somebody else. So I had to
Okay.
run their program, you know.
So that was Prime, right? Or something like that?
It was at the time I think it was called Premier Martial Arts.
Premiere, yes,
Yeah,
Premiere.
it was called that, yeah. So that was it was supposed to be a mixture of boxing and Krav Maga and some jujitsu, but it wasn't the type of place I wanted to have. So I, you know, I made sure that as soon as I was ready, I left and opened my own place, you know.
Okay, so when I saw you also were on TRL, I believe it was.
Yeah.
For Never Back Down, they had you there.
Yeah, Never Back
Yeah,
Down, this MMA movie that came out. That
yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
fun. I did that with my friend Rick. Yeah.
So
Um,
what did MTV reach out to you guys, or were you part of the Never Back Down thing?
no, they reached out to us. I think they called our school and asked if we had somebody that could possibly be on there.
Okay,
And
nice.
yeah, so we put
So it was
together
easy
a
as
little
that.
routine. Yeah, we put together a routine in like 5 minutes. You know, he and I work really, we're still very close friends actually.
I
Um,
saw there was a lot of videos between with you both of you guys.
yeah, we work well together. So we put that together quick. He's the guy, it's funny, his name is Rick Bello. He's a great martial artist. He's living in Florida now. But I had an audition for a commercial for Nat Geo, and they said, we need somebody to do jumping, spinning flips. It was the next day. I'd never done jumping, spinning flips, but Rick was a Taekwondo expert. So he's like,
Mm.
I can teach you. I had one afternoon. So this motherfucker taught me jumping, spinning, flying kicks within like 2 hours. And the next day I went against this guy and they told me I got the job because of my jumping, spinning kicks.
Oh
You
wow,
know,
nice.
we ended up using them. Yeah. So he and I, we did some fun stuff together back then. Yeah.
So have you done like work on movies like as a what's it called as a what's the word?
Like a stunt person.
Yeah, well, as not necessarily a stunt person, but like a court, like martial arts choreography or something,
Yeah. So
coordinator.
it's funny. I approached a friend of mine who's in stunts
Okay.
about wanting to do a stunt coordinator job, and he freaked out. He's like, you know, stunt coordinator is a very specific job. Like I insulted him, so I
Mm.
stopped approaching him. But I actually promoted his last belt, so maybe he'll talk to me now. But yeah, I loved it. I did it a little bit years ago and I loved it. I'd really enjoy getting into that again, especially because of the background I have in Krav Maga along with Jiu-Jitsu. I think movies like John Wick, that's the kind of stuff that they like to do along with the weapon stuff. So um I'm excited to get into that, you know. And I love storytelling. I started off doing a TV show on PBS when I was a teenager that I hosted for 3 years, and I was doing some work in plays and I was doing, you know, a little bit of work on TV. So I enjoyed acting and I loved the behind the scenes stuff too. I directed some plays too and directed a little short film. So
Oh,
I like
nice.
that side of it, you know.
What was the short film about?
It's called One Shot Juan. It's about a young guy who was being interrogated the night that he murdered his pregnant girlfriend.
Oh shit.
Um, yeah, so it's pretty
It
intense.
went dark, yeah.
Yeah, it got into the San Francisco Short Film Festival the year that I did it.
Nice.
Yeah, so,
Congratulations. Yeah.
thank you. It's been a while. So I left. I was set to move to California to pursue screenwriting, and my
This was
ex-girlfriend.
around was this
This
around
was
the divorce
before I
time?
opened my school. This was right before I started managing that place, Premier Martial Arts.
Oh, so this early, early.
Yeah, this is early. It was my obsession, you know. And my ex-wife says, "Oh, why don't you stay here and like for a year and save some money?" So that became, oh, why don't you stay here and open a school? And I was like, wait a minute, I thought I was moving to California. And then it was,
Okay.
well, let's stay here and have a baby. And then, and then before I knew it, 20 years had passed and I never moved. And I set, you know, a lot of stuff aside. But when I sold the school, I was determined to focus on writing and I was determined to put a book out and I was determined to, you know, really commit myself no matter what, you know, and that took some sacrifice. And you know, not driving a Lexus anymore, not eating at expensive restaurants, and not doing a lot of things I was used to doing. But that I was willing to do that because I wasn't willing to do that when I was a kid. I wasn't willing to like do without things when I was younger. I wanted the flash because I felt like that took me out of the ghetto, you know, somehow. Um, I think a lot of us experienced that early on, but I learned
That's
fast.
definitely the that is like the thing that we do is like my mom would say it's kind of, but in Spanish it's like, oh, somos pobres pero no somos sucios. It's like you got to be
Yeah.
fresh at death. You got to get nice.
Hmm.
It's kind of like ignorant shit, but I mean, there's something to do with it too, because it definitely helps your mentality. But it's like it's not only that. We need more than just that to
Yeah.
increase our.
I heard this fascinating thing about why uh Black culture in particular is so big on fashion. And it talked about Sundays when slaves could get dressed for church. That was the one time that they were allowed to get dressed up.
Mm,
So they really went all out, and that's why church dress to this day looks the way it does, and why
okay,
fashion became
Sunday
something really,
best.
yeah, Sunday best. I really felt like that was interesting.
Okay, I never heard that angle, but it makes sense. I know
Yeah.
that it even comes like that's just in like the blood because I saw something about like these African dandies they're called, and like they get dressed up and then they just like act crazy. Yeah, they basically act crazy in the street. They'll just walk around in traffic and like stop traffic, but they're like
Oh,
wearing
yeah.
these crazy suits and
Like
stuff, and
peacocking, like,
kind of like that. Yeah, like peacocking basically.
yeah. Uh,
It's crazy. You should look
is
it
it
up.
part of a mating thing?
No, it's like the way they get their money now. Like it's like part of like influencing and like that
Oh,
too. So now like the boutiques will like pay them to wear like certain suits and shit and like advertise, but like you gotta it's just weird.
where is
It's a
this?
in Africa, I forget the country, but it's called African Dandies. You could just look
Uh,
that up. Yeah. I'll send you something about that. Yeah, it's
it's
funny.
crazy, man. You watch a little bit of Vice, and there's so much stuff around the world that is mind blowing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's like people are more alike than they're different, I'll say.
Hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Word. Yeah. Okay. So you never really got into any of that type of. So you never got to work with movies and stuff, but you're working on it. Hopefully one day.
Yeah, I
Uh.
think it'll happen organically. I'm not
Yeah.
forcing anything, but um, I have a couple of connections. I'm just not, like I said, I'm not forcing. I think it'll happen in time.
Okay. But like I asked about like your students and stuff, but like how was your success like in martial arts and fighting and all that?
I always had knee issues, so I didn't compete as much as I always wanted to, but I
Mm.
got to win the world championship in the masters division, which for me was something I'd never get to do. They didn't have that competition when I first started training. So when they created it and I finally thought, okay, I'm gonna have a chance to have a world championship, I was excited and it actually happened. So I'm proud of that moment.
Okay.
And I did it like while training, having my knee dislocate and having my coach pop my knee back in and
Ah shit.
you know,
Some real
yeah.
warrior shit.
And then a couple years later I competed after having my finger dislocate and getting surgery and training with one hand for a couple of weeks. I got the cast off the day before the flight to Vegas, and I competed. I won a couple of matches, so I'm proud of that tournament as well because I stuck through.
Okay.
So, but for me, it was always more exciting to see my students compete, to run around and coach, to see their success. Um,
So that you never got to fight like any big names or anything like that.
no, I never fought MMA, but when I was younger, MMA was not as big.
Mm.
Um, I think I would have tried it back then. I don't think I would have made it a career because I see how hard it is, and I don't wish that life on anybody, man. Like weight cuts look like death. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? The public doesn't realize these guys push their bodies so much that a lot of them look like they're gonna die,
And
man.
his water weight, which is like, what the fuck is that doing
That's
here?
water weight. So there's no cushioning in their brains when they fight because there's no time to get those fluids
The
back.
water. Oh
You know
wow,
what I mean? So
damn.
you're taking impact. It's just not healthy, man. So I'm glad I never got into it. I have friends that just did one fight just to do it, and I think that's cool. But at 48, I'm not gonna do that. Even though I'm not about, oh, my age, I can't do this, I can't do that. I just don't have the ego to do it. You know what I mean? And for
Hmm.
me, competition was all about ego. Like I hated competing. I only wanted to compete so that I wouldn't care about competing. I only wanted to compete so that I could walk in and compete and not be nervous and not. So I did that. Like I trained and I competed until it became a walk in the park. I could smile whether I won or I lost, and I didn't care what anybody thought, and I achieved that. So I don't feel hunger to do anything else, or like I missed out on anything,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
No, yeah, I understand. Well, okay. All right. Now, and you taught a lot too, so it's like that was really your passion to teach and like to make that
Yeah,
connection with the. Mhm.
yeah, man. And you whenever you're doing something you're meant to do, you feel it, and on those days when I was on teaching or when I'm really in the zone, man, I feel like there's nothing else that I should be doing, you know. I'm meant to do that, you know. But I'm
So do you
lucky I have a
still
couple
teach?
things I do.
Oh, that's what
I
I was
do.
gonna
I do
ask.
private classes and I do one group class a week with like select students, I don't just teach anybody because the last time I did that, I got really there's a specific way that I teach, and now there's a message that I'm trying to get across. And you know, I'm trying to learn what makes these people tick so that I can help them grow as individuals. And if they're not ready for that message, I don't want to waste my time or their time. So now I only work with people I want to work with, like I'm not just at a school
So
where
it's
everybody's
purely
welcome.
spiritual. Like it's purely not well,
It's
not spiritual, but it's purely this work. Like it's not for.
Yeah, no, it's about doing the practice of martial arts for a purpose.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? You're not doing anything just to do, and it's all related to life. It's all something that you will do all day long, even when you're not practicing. You're practicing, You're learning how to deal with resistance. That's the number one thing, especially in jiu-jitsu, but also in any kind of striking. You're going left while they're going right. You're pushing while they're pulling. You're not, forcing, forcing, forcing. And that's what I'm trying to teach, through basic things, like how we move and how we set our weight and how we, hesitate or don't, there's so many things that can give you insight into yourself in martial arts.
No, yeah, but okay, so that's nice. So they're like now it's just like this is your mission and you're gonna do it like when you meet those people, it's not like just somebody that wants to learn how to fight. It's deeper than that. I get it. It's-
Yeah. But I
This is
mean,
a
I have students who are further along on the path themselves. So they're not looking for any kind of like, not that I'm a guru, but they're not looking for a guru. They're looking
mhm,
to train martial arts, but they've already done the work so that I can talk to them on a level that I can't talk to other people that haven't done the work on themselves. You know what I mean? That
mhm.
haven't looked inside at all. Those people I just have to deal on the surface. And I don't want to deal on the surface right now. You know what I mean? Like I want to start I want to start you at a certain place, where you've done part of the work. Because if you haven't done part of the work, you haven't shown commitment yet. And if you haven't shown commitment, what am I going to do with you? Because for what I want to do, you need to be committed. I'm going to kick your ass physically and mentally. So you need to be committed. And if you haven't even started yet, you're not committed. That's my
Mhm.
attitude when it comes to who I'm working with.
Okay. So I want to also ask you like I don't know if it's like me just being ignorant or being into martial art and or whatever, but like as far as like jujitsu goes, like I feel like it's usually like Latin people like are usually like like they're the most famous ones that like the common person will know. Like you always
Yeah.
think about like the well I'm forgetting the name now, but I know it's the Brazilians. I forget their name.
The
There's like a
Gracie
fam,
family.
the Gracie family. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
mm-hmm,
Yeah. Jiu-jitsu came from Japan
mm-hmm,
originally. So a judo slash jiu-jitsu player, went to Brazil, and the Gracie family helped him settle. So he taught judo, which was also called Kano Jiu-Jitsu. Professor Kano created judo. So Kano Jiu-Jitsu was taught to the Gracie family. and they turned that into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So they essentially turned judo into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. How? By focusing on the groundwork instead of the stand-up part. So they got better on the ground and they
Mm,
lost the stand-up ability, because one thing had to give. You can't work both equally well. So judo became a split sport where it became Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on the ground and it became judo standing up, but it's the same sport, you know. They both have elements of stand up and ground, but one focuses more on one focuses on the other. And traditional jiu-jitsu, which I got my black belt in first, that's more self-defense oriented and it's less realistic than the stuff in judo and Brazilian jiu-jitsu because it's based on samurai stuff and things that
mm.
happen wearing armor that's not as realistic today, and weapons. It's dealing with swords and knives and stuff like that.
And that's more like the Kano Jujitsu, right?
Yeah, that's even before Kano Jiu-Jitsu because Kano Jiu-Jitsu started to incorporate the pressure testing and he created judo, which
Okay.
is synonymous with Kano Jiu-Jitsu. So that the difference was you could
Okay,
train
okay.
all out and not get killed and not get maimed, but still know what works, just by taking out certain things.
So judo originates from jujitsu,
Yes.
and then
Then Brazil,
judo became stand up, and Brazilian jiu-jitsu became the ground.
right. Yeah.
Okay.
So in judo competition, there's still groundwork, but they only give you a few seconds to get something on the ground. They won't let you keep working down there. And in jiu-jitsu, you can take somebody down, but you're only going to get 2 points. You're not going to win the match for the takedown like you could in judo.
So would they pick you up after you do the takedown, or are you
In
able to
jiu-jitsu, they'll
keep?
leave you down there. In judo, you get if the takedown is not a full point, a full ippon, it's called, then you can keep going on the ground for a little bit to see if you get a submission. But if it's not there in like 10 seconds, they're going to stand you up. In jiu-jitsu, you get your points and you keep going on the ground indefinitely, till somebody
Okay.
wins. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's easy to say that one is more realistic than the other, they're not going to stand you up if you're on the ground unless people are breaking up a fight, but at the same time the fights all start standing, and if you get thrown on the concrete it's not going to be good for you. It's not like getting thrown on the mat. So what's more effective for self-defense is up for discussion.
Okay, so that's why like you also practice like Krav Maga and the
Yeah.
kickboxing and like
Yeah.
okay.
But when I've had street altercations, judo is what comes out. Judo is what comes out. It seems to be the most natural. I don't know if it's because it's just built into my body, but it is efficient. Nobody has to get punched. Fight is over very quickly
So
because
what will be a judo takedown? Like what happens in a judo situation?
so
Like
there's
how
a
do you implement it in a street fight? I'm saying sorry.
there's a throw called osotogari in particular. It's a major leg reap. So if someone is coming toward you for an attack and you have your hands up in any kind of defensive position, or even like you come out in a clothesline position and you trip their leg with your leg by putting your leg behind their leg and
Mhm.
off balance them with your upper body. When you throw, the throw is very powerful and they're going to hit their head on the concrete, especially if you don't know how to hold them up. I know how to keep somebody from hitting their head, but if
Also
you
the
don't,
so my bad, sorry that I cut you off, but it's
yeah.
basically like the typical like hood sweep.
It's almost like you remember when Steven Seagal would like clothesline somebody in a movie and they would go
Yeah, and
for
they got the leg back. Yeah, the hood
yeah.
sweep is like whoop.
Yeah, so it's that, but also sweeping the leg at the same time,
Hmm.
right? So but there's a way to do it, like to do it properly. If you're doing it like a black belt, like a good judo player,
Yeah.
it's very different from somebody else doing it
Yeah, yeah, I get it.
with a
Yeah,
lot of
obviously.
power. So when you're talking about a street fight, that shit's gonna work, But now you implement the ability to control them on the ground with jujitsu, putting your knee on their stomach, controlling the balance. Now you don't have to hit anybody. You know what I mean? And if you have to put them to sleep, you put them to sleep, but you still don't have to hurt them.
So you've had to get into situations before in the street because of just
I have, not
hmm
a lot, thankfully, but Yeah. The last time was probably a year and a half ago. Year and a half ago in Miami.
What, a drunk guy?
Drunk guy. Yeah, drunk guy. Drunk guys are the easiest to fling around to, but uh the guy yeah, the guy gave him a warning and he didn't listen. And so I threw him and I warned him again. I said, look, if you come back, I'm gonna put you to sleep right here in the middle of the street. He got up, he was loud. Sure enough, he came back talking shit, got close, and I took him down the same way and I put him to sleep. But I put him to sleep gently. I knew I wasn't gonna hurt him. I knew he was gonna wake up in a few seconds. I know what I'm doing. And that's it. The fight was over. No punches, no nothing, you know. And I whispered to him, look, you gotta know who you're fucking with, man. You know, before he went to
That
sleep.
shit must have been scary as fuck to
Yeah,
him.
yeah, yeah. I said something else, but I don't want people to think I'm a fucking psychopath. Uh,
Next time. Next time you won't wake up.
no, I told him, and I'll tell you why I said this first. I said this because I heard someone say this like 20 years before. I told him, this is what it feels like to die. And then that's it, he passed out. So, so,
Damn.
so, so he learned a lesson that night. But
How did he get up when he got up? What was it? Did he even remember what
oh,
was
I don't
happening?
know. I jumped in the Uber. He
Oh,
was
you
still asleep.
skedaddles?
He was still asleep. Yeah, yeah. And the cops were on the corner. There were two Miami PD radio cars on the corner. Nothing happened. People eating on the sidewalk. What happened? The Uber driver didn't know what the fuck was going on, but I was like, don't worry, he's gonna wake up. You know, we left. But you know what? If I wasn't in a bad mood, that wouldn't have happened. That happened because I was in a bad relationship. I was in a bad mood. You know, shit was popping off all weekend that I didn't want to deal with. And it's funny, the day before, this cat at a bar that was being like real loud and obnoxious, like tried to tell me that I didn't want to fuck with him because he was like a ex Golden Gloves boxer, like fucking 100 years ago. And oh, and that he was from Jersey. He kept saying, I'm from Jersey, I'm from Jersey. I fucking lost it. So I was like, look, let's go outside. I'm gonna beat your ass. And then the security threw him out, and they were like, look, he's bothering people, leave him alone. So I was already on a bad head from the day before. So then the drunk guy says, what? I'm from Philly. And that shit like set me off. I was like, oh, this guy's from Jersey. This guy's from fucking Philly.
And I'm from Brooklyn, so what the
I
fuck y'all saying?
I couldn't deal with it anymore. But in my right mind, I wouldn't have fucking thrown that guy. I would have ignored him somehow. You know what I mean? Somehow I would. And today I believe that I would ignore him. I believe that that would turn out completely different, you know. And I wouldn't be with in a situation, God willing. I don't think I will anymore, but I'll be in a situation like that when I'm in a relationship that would cause me to lose my shit like that.
Yeah, right. It's definitely about the environment.
Yeah.
Sometimes you carry those things with you, and well, you definitely carry them with you.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you find a partner that has the same kind of issues or issues that match your issues, you know, and they don't complete you. They just are the other side of those issues. You know what I mean? Now you just feed each other. And that was something I was doing for a long time, choosing people that would feed my issues, you know. I had to break out of that. So I spent like the last year and a half by myself for the first time in my whole life, you know, just to get to know myself and stop depending on somebody else to make me feel good about myself and, you know, the accolades of other people and all that shit. You know?
Yeah, so you definitely had a long journey. I respect it, man, and all the work. I want to congratulate you on all the work that you've done on yourself too. Sorry, what? You were breaking up.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And thanks for having me on and giving me the opportunity to talk about it. You know, I think mental health is really the premier issue for any of us as we try to kind of navigate through life. So I hope I can be some help.
No, yeah, definitely. So, can you like elaborate more on some of the writing you've done, like, and how has the writing helped you?
You know, writing from the time I was 12, it just helped me get out emotions that I couldn't talk to other people about, especially in my environment. You know, nobody really related to me. So the words, you know, the words didn't wouldn't disagree with me. They would just go along with whatever I was thinking, you know. Um, so I remember just always letting it out. And when I was 13, I won an essay contest on the Holocaust. I'll never forget. And my teacher told me, you know, you have a lot of potential. You could be a really good writer. And from there, I kept writing always, mostly for myself. But then I started writing for magazines after college. I graduated from NYU and I got a journalism degree. So I wrote for Muscle and Fitness and some other magazines after college. And I thought that was going to be my career, but then I set it aside when I opened my school, you know. And I tried to do both, but it was causing problems with my relationship because I would get home from work and then I would have to start my writing when my family went to bed, so that it would have caused conflict, and it was too hard. So writing fell by the wayside. But when I quit, it took some time for me to start writing again because I was kind of recovering from my breakup, but I definitely jumped in head first and started just pumping out material as much as I could, knowing that the harder I worked and the more I wrote, the better I was going to get, you know. And I hated getting edited when I was a kid, you know, when I was out of college, but I realized how important that was. And I realized how important it was to learn my craft and to slowly start to build and become better, just like I did as a martial artist. You know, it wasn't going to happen overnight. So even though I was doing it at an advanced age, and even though it was something that I thought I was going to do in my 20s, I decided that I was going to take the risk because it meant that much to me, because I have no choice but to do it. So I might as well go all out and try to make it work, you know?
Yeah, definitely, it's gotta go all the way with it, man. And it's definitely like a. I know it's kind of, like you said, it's like therapy. Like you weren't able to speak to people about these things when you were young. Like, do you ever get like feedback to someone? Do people ever hit you up like, hey, like this really
Oh
helped me
man,
through?
constantly, man, constantly. Today, it's funny. I said like today I had a hard day emotionally because of some rapid cycling, but I've also gotten tons of comments today on one of my articles that is doing well right now, and just so many people saying that they feel like they're being seen and heard and understood, and that they see they're not alone now, and that makes it worth it. You know what I mean? That reassures you that you've made a difference in somebody's life that you don't know, and to be able to do that every day, it's incredibly rewarding. You know, it's incredibly rewarding. I wish that it could prop me up longer than it does because I can be down in the dumps right after, you know. But but I definitely know that I'm doing God's work when I see that, you know. Definitely know that. Yeah.
Yeah, man, and it's part of the fight too, because like you gotta you say that you will hope that it like you wish that it could prop you up longer, but maybe you should just look at it like just seeing like it is actually working, like that is the work, like and you're doing what you're here to do. You feel me? And it's like
Yeah.
yeah, like and you don't think of it as just a minor thing. It's just like you're really doing it.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's hard to remember, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's hard to it's hard to give yourself credit for so many of us, you know. I know that happens for me a lot. I know I forget my accomplishments as quickly as they happen, you know. We all do. So it's important to
Yeah,
hold on to
man.
those things.
And we can't belittle them, man. You never know what you're really doing out there, how you're helping people.
Yeah. And how
Yeah.
somebody you help can help somebody else, you know.
Mm-hmm. There's definitely a it's we're all part of like a we're all one, man. We're all connected. So it's like once you help that other cog in the system, everything starts flowing even better in the whole universe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. I definitely believe we're part of a network that just, you know, feeds off each other, and the more you learn, the more you give to the system, you know what I mean? The more you contribute. Um, and I think that's definitely passing that on will definitely only help you grow more, you know. It's only going to bring good things to you.
Okay, I mean, I feel like that's a good place to end it, but I always ask, have you ever had I know it's gonna be like out of left field. Have you ever had any like supernatural experiences or extraterrestrial anything?
I,
Anything out the blue?
I have, I have. I've had a couple of supernatural experiences.
Okay.
Uh, one of them trauma related. I
Hmm.
was going through a flashback and I tried everything to recover. So I surrendered for the first time in my life. And when I surrendered, I don't know what I was surrendering to. I just surrendered. I couldn't take it anymore. And I let out this loud scream. And all of a sudden I was in this white room. And
Hmm.
and then I could see myself as a kid in front of the Kung Fu master. But I was standing behind myself as a man. And I put my hands on my own shoulders and I told myself that I'm okay now, that I'm here to protect me now.
The murder?
Yeah, yeah. And then I woke up and I opened my eyes. I mean, I was awake, but my eyes were against the sofa. I was with my ex-girlfriend. When I opened my eyes, I had the biggest smile on my face. Like I went from tears to like I was seeing the world for the first time. It was fucking incredible. So for weeks
Hmm.
afterwards, I felt like I could see people's words. Like I felt like I was one with the universe for weeks after. That was incredible. Um, and then as far as extraterrestrial, the other day, I've had a couple. The other day I had one where I was driving and there was I was on the highway, so I know it wasn't a drone. There was a disc, a white disc hovering toward me, going at a weird speed. But it was like, I think I was in the middle lane on the highway and it was very low, but it was super bright, just like a disc of light. I remember just looking at it and thinking that was not fucking normal. And last year I took video of something that appeared in the sky over my apartment. Um,
Oh yeah,
that
definitely. You
kept,
gotta share that with me.
yeah, I'll send it to you. It kept like uh, darting back and forth, like
Hmm.
at a really weird pace. Then it would kind of get blurry, reappear, dart again.
And it was
The way
also like a globe of light.
it was, yeah, it was like a star, but the biggest star in the sky, like way bigger than any, like too big to be a star. And the movement was crazy. I called my family out. They were like, I don't know what the hell that is. I saw it a couple of times. And so yeah, I've had a couple. I wrote
Hmm.
an article recently about how aliens are kind of making religion seem more realistic in a lot of ways.
So I don't know your whole experience that you just even down to the trauma,
Mm,
everything that you just explained is related to like this whole other phenomenon that's happening. I don't you obviously I'm pretty sure you don't know about it. It's called I forget the original person, but the family is called the Bloodsoe family, and
mm,
they are like in North Carolina, I believe it is. And similar situation, the father had a encounter. It was also trauma based, like he was at the lowest point of his life type of thing, and he called out and then he had a whole but he actually got like abducted or a whole thing, but then like the phenomenon keeps happening, you get it? And then there's also globes, you get it? Like that,
mhm,
those floating things in the sky. So it's like,
mhm,
and then they come to see him, and but he could call on them on command type of thing. Like, people
mhm.
go out there to
Yeah.
go see him, and
I thought like for months I was calling it my friend. Like I would show my
mm,
daughter because I felt like it was always out and like moving when I would say things, and I wasn't sure if I was losing my mind or what was going on. But I was sharing everything with my therapist and she was like, "No, I don't think you're losing your mind. I think these things are just happening to you." And then I
mm,
just having synchronicity. I started having synchronicities like 10 times a day. Most insane things that didn't make any sense at all, man. And then I was just like, all right, there's something more happening here than I'm, you know. that I'm used to. So I've just accepted it now.
What was a crazy synchronicity if you could share?
God, there's so many. Uh, my daughter and I were watching this show. It was like a spoof where Michael Bolton, the singer, was hosting, and she didn't know who Michael Bolton was. It was like I forget what it was. So I'm like telling her about Michael Bolton, and we're like making fun of him. And then we're at my dad's house, and my dad calls me over to his bedroom, and I go over. He calls me to see something on Telemundo, and I look to the left, and there's a fucking Michael Bolton box set. My father doesn't listen to Michael Bolton. Michael Bolton box set of DVDs, like for no fucking reason.
What the fuck?
What the fuck is happening? So that's one of them, man. And then another time we're watching a TV show, and the name of the team is the Bengals baseball team. And then my daughter and I get in the car right afterwards to drive home, and we're passing a van, and there's fucking bumper sticker Bengals baseball on the van.
What the fuck? What are the odds?
Of that, but this happens constantly, all day. Like I spent a period where I was taking pictures of everything that would remind me of synchronicities, And one day I'm taking pictures of everything, and I'm taking pictures of these gates of graffiti, and I turn, and there's my name with a big heart where the O should be. It says Julio, but there's an O. There's a heart, and I'm like, I took that as a sign. I'm like, all right, I guess there's a reason why I'm taking all these pictures. But it happens all the time. So there are these little like there's the first word in one of these really important Hebrew texts is shama, which means like basically like pay attention. And I just feel like the more we pay attention, the more there are so many signs showing us that things aren't what they appear to be. It's just most people just go through their days asleep. They don't pay attention to anything. There's so many synchronicities jumping out constantly. If you're not
Oh
even
yeah,
looking
though.
for them, just have your eyes open. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We definitely live in a matrix, bro. It's a
Oh
simulation.
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, how the hell would you know when it is? You're not gonna know when it is. You know what I mean? Like it's gonna be so seamless. So I mean, with what they're doing with AI now, especially the text to video stuff, it is just fucking mind blowing. It's mind blowing. So who knows? There's a reason it doesn't seem to make sense, I think. You
But
know.
no, yeah, but I feel like there's a lot of we're scared about the AI stuff, but like a lot of that shit, like if you have a keen eye for
Hmm.
fakes for like photography or like just stuff, like you're able to like
Yeah, now
now, yes, you're able to,
now you
yeah,
can. Look where it was a year ago, where you
yeah,
had
but
that
I feel like
eating pasta video that looked all
mhm,
mangled and shit. Now it's like, and in another year, another two. I mean, it's the exponential growth is. I mean, I'm not frightened of it. It's inevitable, you know, but
no, yeah,
it's clearly bringing us toward this completely different digital society where it's inevitable that we're going to be living inside of this sort of matrix type game, this virtual reality, where we can't tell the difference.
mhm.
That's it, you know.
I mean, yeah, art mimicking life as above as below type of shit.
Hmm.
Hmm. All right, but so anything else you want to share with the people, let the people know before we wrap everything up?
Just my book Broke Down Sensei is on Amazon right now.
Hmm.
I'm putting out actually a workbook. It's a mental wellness workbook that I'm putting out on Amazon. It should be on there
Okay,
tomorrow.
nice.
So I need a link for that as well. And that's just like to get people used to journaling and answering certain questions about their own mental wellness, for like a period of 30 days to give you the habit of learning to journal and what you should be looking for, stuff that's helped me.
Hmm.
So, yeah, hopefully we can pick that up.
Okay, nice. So I'm definitely gonna check that out. So damn, I just blanked. So what can the people like? What is the work that like? What type of work can the people expect aside from like obviously your books and stuff? Like, what type of work can the people expect from you? Are you gonna be putting out more inspirational videos, or like what are you gonna be doing?
I'm going to be doing more inspirational videos for sure, but mainly because my focus is going to be doing corporate workshops, a lot of corporate workshops and workshops for social groups as well. Like I've been doing a lot of stuff with social workers to help them understand dealing with mentally ill patients and dealing with safety issues out on the field and things like that. So I like the idea of working with groups like that more
Mm.
and sharing that message and helping people, especially in urban environments, deal with the fear that they're experiencing due to trauma, you know.
Are you gonna as far as like talking with social workers, are you trying to like implement jujitsu to them so when they get into these situations where they're having to deal with people that are in mental distress or something like that?
Yeah, it's MMA and Krav Maga, so it's
Okay,
jujitsu
okay.
as well. But a lot of it are mental tools, and a lot of the martial arts stuff is movement, creating distance, you know, creating boundaries, physical boundaries, and very simple but brutal techniques when necessary. But a lot of these people, they can't be fighting when they're in the job. So there's a lot of things they need to learn, techniques they need to learn to avoid
But
altercations.
you're not gonna be doing any videos like the what's the guy? It was like Michigan self-defense, the guy with the black guy
Oh
with the
my
guns.
God, that guy. You know how many comments I've written to him to please stop putting out these horrible videos that he's gonna get somebody killed? Like I've done it so many times, like begging him, please. He's the worst.
Nah, yeah, okay, okay.
But
So
I'm
okay,
gonna put out a series though, a video series soon of
okay, okay.
self-defense moves. Yeah.
Okay, hopefully by the time this comes out, because it's gonna come out a little bit after, so hopefully by the time you at least have something that you could plug in the
Yeah.
comments in the description and all that. Okay, so let them know where they can find you again.
So my website is internaljujitsu.com. On Instagram, I'm internal jujitsu. On Twitter or X, I'm Jiu-Jitsu Mind. I'm also on LinkedIn as Julio A. Rivera. And my essays are on medium.com under my name, Julio Angel Rivera.
Excellent. Okay, definitely gonna plug everything down in the description. But just like that, man, it's been a great episode. I appreciate you for stopping by, Julio. And you had a. I also want to congratulate you on like your journey and everything. I know it's like, I know sometimes like congratulations kind of like it seems like not the appropriate thing, but I feel like
Mhm.
you gotta at least like acknowledge those moments, like
Right.
those victories. You get it? So,
Yeah.
and I know that the work always is continuous, like it's constant.
Yeah. I agree.
Mhm.
Thank you, Sonny. Thanks for giving me the voice too, man. I really appreciate it.
No, yeah, definitely. Anytime, man. Definitely gonna have you on again. But just like that, man, it's been a great episode. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, follow Julio and everything. Go check out Internal Jiu-Jitsu. Go check out the books. I'm gonna leave the links down in the description. But yeah, just like that, guys, it's been a great episode and thank you. Peace.